Jason here for another Wealth Coffee Chat. Hopefully everyone is awesome and well. What a wonderful day. Thursday, 24th of June. It's all happening. The coffee's warm and hopefully the sun's coming out. Hopefully you're all well wherever you are. Do the intros as everything's sort of warming up. People are jumping on the live. Good morning to those who are returning, as always, the regulars. Fabulous to have you guys in the house. Christina, good to see you. All the way from YouTube. Fantastic to have you in town. Mark, how are you? Great to have you here. There's a few of the regulars. Graham, Sean. Hey, Craig, how are you, brother? Mama Sharon, good to see you as well. Andrew Lewis, a few people in the house this morning. Fantastic. Great to see you guys this morning coming along. There's Jeff all the way in from YouTube today. Hey, Kevin, all the way from Florida. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for dropping by. Glenn, Arctic, a few people coming in from YouTube these days, which is great. Fantastic to have you guys on today as well. So great to see all of you guys popping by. So for those who don't know me, Jason Witten's my name. If you're new, say hello, give us a shout in the chat. Been property investing over 20 years and helping property investors. There's Mel from Newcastle. G'day, Mel. Helping YouTube notified first today. This is, YouTube's a little bit better. Yeah, well, I reckon you're right, actually, gang. Facebook sometimes can be a bit dicky, can't it? But good to see you guys. Today, I wanted to talk about commercial property. I get this question all the time, and certainly it's an interesting topic. Maybe Facebook Live not happening today. Well, let me see. That's interesting, isn't it? Well, it looks like it's on, but maybe there's some other things happening in the world of technology. but great, you guys can be here anyway. So there we go. All right. Well, listen, let's have a bit of a chat about the idea of commercial property. I get it quite often, where it's like, well, hey, listen, I've heard commercial property's got a better rental return, and should I invest in commercial property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And the answer is, well, maybe, but probably not, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the world of investing in your portfolio, because it has some restrictions, some challenges for us as property investors, and let's have a bit of a look at what they might be as we roll along in our portfolio. So let's sort of dive in here and have a bit of a look. So what are the things that I get asked about all the questions? So there's these questions. All right, I can get a better cash flow when it comes to commercial real estate. Double M. I can get more cash flow out of my commercial real estate. I think the A is around the other way in the I. So, isn't that better? Isn't that a bit more tick in the box? I can get, longer leases. Okay, leases. Isn't that a bit of a tick in the box? Isn't that better for my money? Isn't that better for me as a property investor? Et cetera, et cetera. And so on. There, might be some, idea that the tenants pay all the outgoings. Okay, so instead of you paying for the rates and the water and the insurance and stuff like that, well, the tenant pays when it comes to commercial real estate. That's not a bad move. That's not a bad gig. When you think about it, you go, wow, okay, that could be pretty handy for me. I'd be up for that. And so on. So probably those are the three things that I hear often when it comes to commercial real estate. Better cash flow, longer leases, and the tenants pay all the outgoings. Isn't that good? So the answer is yes, that is good. But the challenge for us when it comes to commercial real estate, gang, and give us a shout out in the chat if you've got any questions. But the challenge for us is as investors is, can we afford to invest in commercial real estate? Because there's some cons, there's some downsides to this in comparison. So let's have a bit of a look at, let's say, commercial, real estate, and then residential real estate in comparison as we go along. So number one, let's have a look at the loan to value ratios, okay, the LVRs, okay, loan to value ratios. Now, commercial real estate for under $1 million, so less than $1 million, less than 1 mil, you can get up to 80% lending. And that's mostly on small things. It's mostly on potentially owner-occupier things if you're a business, small business, as you go along. So 80% lending, that's not too bad. However, loan-to-value ratio on residential, for most of us investors, we're getting 90% lending. So technically, gang, what does that mean when it comes to, your investing world? So if you had $100K here in your commercial world, you could buy a $500,000 property. If you had $100K here, technically, you could buy $1 million worth of property. Okay? So the significance difference when it comes to using your capital is double. Okay? Now, the thing is this, which we'll look at in a second. So, all right, well, loan to value ratio. All right, rents. Okay, let's have a look at the rents. All right, well, commercial property, you can get, between sort of 5 and sort of 8%. Okay. So, at the end of the day, that's fantastic. Especially at this end of town here, we've got some things that, that might be fantastic, okay? But the challenge will be is when we're looking at our ability for borrowing, our leverage, then that yield might not be as good when it comes to the total return when you have a bit of a look at it. So rents 5 to 8%. Over here in the residential world, we're getting 4 to 5%. That's what we're getting, okay? When it comes to your rental return, okay? But the upside here, gang, which is what we like, is we've got more property, we've got more dollars for our property in the residential world. And technically, what we do is we are still receiving, if we're looking at 5% on $1 million, then we're still receiving a good amount of actual rent, okay? That's, that's our, that's $50,000 of income in comparison to, 5 to 8% over on $500,000, which is not as much gross dollars or dollars in your return, right? So rents, they're pretty good in the commercial world, but still not groundbreaking enough as far as I'm concerned when it comes to the lack of lending, okay, when it comes to that. Mostly the lending loan-to-value ratios are 60 to 70%, gang, especially if you go over $1 million worth of real estate. So that'll hold you back pretty significantly. The big one for me is the vacancy rates in commercial real estate. I'm just looking at a couple of stats here right now, and this was January 2019. But I haven't updated it yet. But vacancy rate in some of the commercial real estate around the country, in Perth, it was 18%. 18% vacancy rate. We had, it can get down as low as 5% vacancy rate up to 18% vacancy rate across the country. So the vacancy rate can be significant, which means your property could be like vacant for longer. You've got less tenants. And what happens is, depending on what type of property you purchase in commercial world, you try and specialize that property because you want to attract a tenant. But that property then, if they left or their business went broke or they couldn't afford to pay the rent, then you're in a whole world of hurt. Vacancy rate around the world, or not around the world, around Australia, vacancy rate in the residential space is quite low. On average, a balanced market is a 3% vacancy rate around the country. At the moment, across Australia, many places. I've drawn under my photo there, so I'll move that over. Many places around the country are way lower than 3%, even around the 2 and the 1%. 2 and the 1% vacancy rate, which is extremely low. The properties are getting re-rented immediately. A 5 to 4% vacancy rate in residential real estate is very rare, and mostly in CBD locations, which is like where there's thousands of apartments. And don't buy in CBD locations. I've talked to you guys about this before. Vacancy rate as we go. And then, fourth, the one that, is, a real sort of kicker at the back end is the cost to fit out or cost to fit out or cost to renovate when it comes to the commercial properties. That can be pretty significant, gang. You've got to bring your property up to speed and, it's, new workshop floors, new whatever it might be. Now, you can sort of sort that out with your leases, but at the end of the day, it's not as confusing over here, to renovate, $5,000 to $10,000 to freshen up your property, maybe between $20,000 and $40,000 to, fully renovate your apartment or something like that when it comes to, some kitchens and bits and pieces like that. So anyway, listen, I just wanted to sort of reach out today and chat to you guys about the world of commercial versus residential. Really, at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to most people that I coach in the residential or building their property portfolio, commercial property for me is a no-go zone, okay? The risk is too high. It consumes too much capital when it comes to your portfolio. You can buy one commercial property where you can buy 2 residential properties. And it's much easier, much more predictable, much less volatile when it comes to owning real estate in the residential space, okay? And for me, I wouldn't sacrifice that certainty of income when it comes to the residential world. The rents are paid more often, much more consistently in comparison to commercial properties. And for many of us, that risk, we can't afford that risk. We don't have lots of backup, buffer, cash flow. We can't afford a property to be vacant for 3, 6 months, 12 months, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, gang, I thought I'd just touch base on that one today. Hopefully that makes some sense. I've had that question a few times, and I thought I'd sort of touch base on it. Yeah, and, Bali sort of said, COVID, pretty hardcore when it came to the world of commercial real estate. People just went out of business, and you can't go, and there wasn't anyone else who wanted to go in there, and et cetera, et cetera. So there was some really interesting times, when that sort of stuff happens. One of the things that I think that does benefit investors and more owner-occupiers when it comes to small to medium businesses is to own your own piece of commercial real estate. Like, I'm a big fan of that. So any sort of self-employed businesses here on this on the live this morning, I've been asked. I'll do a few sections on self-employed and maybe building some value and some wealth in that way. Oh, Darren, all the way from Darwin, mate. Good to see you. Hope you guys are awesome. Thanks for dropping by, and stay out of trouble up there, mate. And Hardik sort of said, how does equity work with commercial real estate? Yeah, look, I mean, Hardik, you can use equity to go again and again when it comes to commercial real estate. The lenders the lenders consider commercial real estate and commercial loans far more risky. And one of the things that we didn't talk about is the lending. So we talked about the rents, but we didn't really talk about the interest rates there on my little page. But the interest rates can be higher; they're 4-5%, and what the loans are actually deemed commercial loans, obviously, but they fall outside of the protection mechanisms when it comes to consumer protection as borrowing. So you as an investor, when you borrow regular mortgage money on a house, you are protected by some consumer law that basically says the banks can't call your loan in, okay? Even if the value of your property drops, you bought a house somewhere, let's say bought a house in Sydney for 800 and the value dropped to 700, temporarily, and it does. Like I've seen it before. We've owned properties in Sydney, and we bought it for X, and then it went down, and then it went up. It happens everywhere. So, but what can happen? Residential, the bank can't call in your loan. Residential, it doesn't happen unless you stop paying. But, as long as you're paying your loan, they can't call your loan in. With commercial lending, if you don't pay your loan, they will call the loan in. Not pay the loan. If the loan value goes down and they re-look at the loan every 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, they can call your loan in, okay? Even if you're paying the loan. It's irrelevant if you can afford to pay. They'll say, all right, well, now the loan-to-value ratio, the value of the property is worth 700. Now we think it's worth 600. You've got to put another $100,000 in. Thanks, everyone. You have to put it in right now. And then I've seen disaster after disaster after disaster when it comes to that, with small businesses securing their own home across their commercial property and their loans being called in. It's an absolute mongrel thing that the lenders do. And again, that's another reason I don't like the idea of regular investors buying commercial property, because the gloves are off, gang. There is zero protection mechanisms to you. It's another level up. If you ever do want to get exposure to, the world of commercial and higher yields, then there's other ways to do that through the stock market and investing in some vehicles called REITs, real estate investment trusts, which you can get some good exposure in. And I've done that with my super fund and stuff like that. So anyway, gang, I'm rabbiting on now, but thought I'd just drop by. It's a big no from me. It's a big hell no from me when it comes to commercial property investing for you in your portfolio. But it's it's a big yes if you are a small to medium business owner occupier and you need to create some wealth in another way. I'll touch base on that in the coming lives. Anyway, that's it. Done and dusted. Live over and done with. Thanks for dropping by, you guys. Good to see you guys using YouTube as well. Sounds like it might be something that works a little bit better also. Anyway, just dribbling on now. I'm done. Hopefully you're good. And take care, and see you guys tomorrow around about the same time, 8 o'clock, for another Wealth Coffee Chat. Hey, thanks, Sharon. All right, take care, gang, and bye for now.